All right, let's unpack something really exciting. I've noticed this incredible buzz around AI lately, and I'm sure you have too. It's absolutely everywhere. What I've found is if you're someone with a new idea, someone looking to build something fresh, that buzz feels even louder. It genuinely feels a bit like a modern day gold rush. But, just like any gold rush, the big question I've been wrestling with, and maybe you have too, is how do you actually stake your claim? Exactly. How do we take those great ideas and truly turn them into successful, scalable products, especially within this rapidly evolving AI landscape? And what if, like many of you, I don't consider myself a traditional tech wizard or a coding expert? That's the core question, isn't it? I see so much potential floating around, but what about the practical steps? The how to for us, for builders and marketers who genuinely want to leverage AI? That's what I believe we all need. So, here's what I've done. I've taken a deep dive into a vast collection of sources, articles, research papers, community discussions online, all focused on this very topic. Because what's clear is that AI is fundamentally changing the game for creators and business builders everywhere. I've found a real mix of viewpoints, which is fantastic. And my mission here in this deep dive is to pull out the most valuable nuggets from all this information. I want to give you a shortcut to understanding what this new AI era truly means for you and your own potential projects. I found a great range of perspectives. Some sources offer super practical guides, like how to build software, even if you, like me sometimes, think you can't code. Others dive deep into business strategy or very specific AI marketing tactics. And yes, even informal community chats about using AI in the day-to-day coding process are incredibly valuable. Exactly. Now, it's all about real-world insights. So, my goal here is to cut through the noise, highlight some surprising things I've found, and most importantly, offer you genuinely actionable insights. I'm keeping it focused squarely on your perspective as someone looking to learn and maybe build something truly cool. Sounds good? I think so too. Let's jump right in. The first big area I want to talk about is AI as your co-pilot for actually building things, even if, like me, coding isn't your main expertise. This topic feels absolutely huge. The sources really hammer this home. If you've ever thought, oh, I suck at code, or I could never build software, well, I'm finding that maybe that's not true anymore. It really seems like I can lower that barrier significantly. It can almost act as your technical co-founder, your own personal CTO in your pocket, maybe. I really like that idea. It's making things accessible that just weren't before. Now, here's a crucial point I found. The sources draw a really clear line between just building a quick demo, like a digital sandcastle, and actually creating real software, something that can truly scale, that can grow. So, what's the key difference between that sandcastle demo and the real deal? I've been asking myself that exact question. Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting, and it's something the sources say is often missed: the database. Many of these AI coding demos you see out there focus on the front end. That's the stuff you see in your browser. But they often skip the part where data gets stored persistently. And that's where the AI, and maybe even you guiding it, can get totally stuck. One source I read actually called it the circle of doom. The circle of doom? Exactly. Because think about any real app you use. It needs to remember stuff, right? User info, posts, products, whatever. That's the database. Without that solid foundation, the AI just doesn't have the context to build something functional, something you can actually scale up later. So it's not just a technical detail, it's like the bedrock. Pretty much, yeah, it's essential. But even before you think about databases or AI code generation, the sources really stress something crucial: validating your idea first. Oh, massively. You don't want to use AI just to build fast in the wrong direction. That's a wasted effort. So, how do you validate? Well, one source gives a great example: using tools like SEMrush, not just for typical SEO stuff, but to see what people are actually searching for. What are their real pain points? What questions are they typing into Google? You're essentially finding the demand first. Exactly. It gives you hard data. Are people looking for a solution to the problem your idea solves? They used an example about finding TikTok influencers and how search data showed what specific problems people had that a tool could fix. That makes so much sense to me. Find the problem, then build. Okay, so idea validated. How does AI help lay the foundation, including that tricky database part? Well, you can actually prompt the AI to help brainstorm your database schema. How your data should be structured. Really? Yes. One source showed using Gemini to suggest a schema based on what info you need to store. It can even generate fake synthetic data to populate it if you don't have real users yet. Okay, that's useful for testing. Definitely. But the key thing they all emphasize is how you prompt. Specificity is absolutely crucial, right? Not just asking vague questions. You need to be precise. Like, give me an example. Okay, so instead of just write code for prime numbers, you'd say something much more detailed, like write a Python function to check if a number is prime, and please optimize it for numbers up to 10,000. Ah, okay. That level of detail gives the AI much better direction. Exactly. It dramatically improves the usefulness of the code you get back. Okay, so validated idea, database thoughts, specific prompts. What's the actual AI-assisted workflow look like for building, say, an MVP? I can be great for generating the initial code. The boilerplate stuff, the basic structure for a minimum viable product. It helps you get from idea to a working app much faster without starting completely from scratch. What tools are mentioned? Tools like Gemini and Cursor come up for the coding itself, and something like Firebase for getting it deployed, getting it online quickly. And I mentioned vibing learning earlier. What's that about? I thought that was interesting. It's this idea that as you're using AI to generate code, you're not just copying and pasting. You start to get a feel for why it's doing what it's doing. So you learn passively almost, kind of. You gain this intuitive understanding, which is really important for guiding the AI later or for tackling the next big thing. Debugging. Debugging. The inevitable reality. The sources said that's still like 90% of coding. That figure definitely grounds things. AI helps you start faster. But yeah, bugs are going to happen. Errors are part of the process. So what's the advice there? Just grit your teeth, pretty much work through them. But one interesting tip was, if you get really stuck, like in that circle of doom, take a break, step away. Or, and I like this, try asking a different AI model in a separate chat window. Get a fresh perspective on the bug. That's smart, like getting a second opinion. And can AI help clean up the code after the first draft? Absolutely. Refactoring, that's the term for improving the internal structure without changing the function. AI tools like one called Zencoder mentioned in the sources can help with that. They can spot potential issues, suggest improvements, help generate unit tests. Unit tests? Yeah, those are like the little automated checks to make sure individual pieces of your code are working correctly. AI can even help write documentation for your code. Okay, so it helps with the deep technical stuff and the finishing touches. What about making it look good? Design isn't everyone's strong suit. That's another area AI can lend a hand. Quick wins here. You can start with templates, maybe from tools like Framer. Focus your design effort on the most important part first, the above the fold bit, what users see immediately. Makes sense. Prioritize. And AI can help generate UI UX ideas too. One source describes sketching simple layouts, maybe in Figma, and then using AI, sometimes integrated right into coding tools like Cursor, to turn those rough sketches into cleaner design suggestions or code. Wow. So AI really can be this versatile co-pilot, covering code, database, testing, even design basics. Okay, so let's say you've used AI, you've built something. What's next? The sources mentioned some almost counterintuitive advice from people like Seth Godin. Just ship it. Yes, this powerful idea, just ship it. Which sounds terrifying, right? What if it's not perfect? What if it breaks? Exactly. But the sources argue that fear of imperfection is exactly what holds so many potential builders back. That reminds me of the ceramics class story they mentioned. It's such a great analogy. So, this ceramics teacher divides the class into two. Group A is graded purely on the quantity of pots they produce. Just make as many as possible. Group B is graded only on the quality of their single best pot. They just need one perfect piece. And the result? The quantity group ended up producing the highest quality work overall. Wow. Because they were constantly making. They were practicing learning from mistakes, trying things, iterating super fast. The quality group spent all their time theorizing about perfection, but didn't get the hands-on practice. So, doing more actually led to doing it better. Shipping, iterating. That's how you build quality, not by waiting for perfection before you ship. Precisely. You learn by doing, and you learn fastest when you put your work out into the world and see what happens. It's about embracing, well, failure, or at least imperfection, as essential feedback, like that Jeff Bezos quote in the sources. Yes, failure comes part and parcel with invention. Iteration is just learning from those stumbles. And shipping that minimum viable product, the MVP, gets it in front of real users fast. So you get that feedback early, right? Which fuels the next iteration. Exactly. Revamp till you die, as one source put it. It's about cycles of prototyping, shipping, learning, refining. And this isn't just for tiny startups, right? Big companies do this too. Oh yeah, the sources mentioned Airbnb, Netflix, Amazon. They all evolved through constant iteration. Spotify is a great example they highlighted. They're always analyzing user behavior, listening to feedback, and then building features like Discover Weekly or Wrapped based on that. That iterative process builds incredible user trust and loyalty over time. And that process of iterating, of constantly showing your work, that actually ties into marketing too, doesn't it? It absolutely does. This idea of building in public. Okay, let me explain that connection. Because AI helps you build and iterate so quickly, you're constantly creating new things. Maybe small fixes, little feature updates, new experiments. That process itself becomes your marketing content. So the journey is the marketing. Kind of. Share those little wins, those simple visual demos of what you're building. Maybe on platforms like Twitter or LinkedIn, where people are already talking. It's easier to tap into existing conversations than to shout into the void. Show your progress as you make it. Building in public turns. The speed AI gives you into a marketing engine. Cool. Okay, shifting gears a bit. The sources also talked about a really interesting alternative path, a way to tackle that validation and cash flow problem head on. The productized service. Yes. This model is fascinating. It basically lets you prove there's demand and start making money before you invest heavily in building the actual software. And the list kit story was the prime example. Yeah, a really compelling one. Andre Heichel Jr. tried the typical startup route first. Raise money, build software. It failed. Burned through the cash. Ouch. So what did he do? He pivoted completely. Instead of selling the software, he started selling the outcome the software was supposed to deliver. In his case, high-quality leads lists. Exactly. He fulfilled the requests manually at first. Okay, he was the software in a sense, doing the work quickly for clients. Okay, why did that work so well? Several key reasons came out in the sources. One, it proved the idea unequivocally. People were paying real money for the outcome. Validation, check. Two, it generated cash flow right away, which he could then reinvest? Smart. And 3, maybe most importantly, he got incredible market research. By doing it manually, he learned exactly what customers needed, what features were critical, what the ideal workflow was, all based on direct interaction. So he basically validated the market and funded the future software build at the same time, using the service. You got it. Only after proving the concept and knowing precisely what to build did he actually create the software. And the result? Crazy growth. 0 to a million in ARR in just 87 days, the source said. Wow. And they mentioned his growth tactics. Yeah, things like cold email, offering a free sample like 50 free leads, worked well. Also, ads, content marketing, affiliate programs, a mix. And he had a point about team building too. Just briefly, yeah. The value of having co-founders with complementary skills. Someone focused on marketing, someone on sales, a tech lead, an overall leader, covering the bases. Makes sense. Okay, so we've hit AI for building, validation, iteration, productized services. Let's really dive into the business side now. Marketing, making money, strategy, especially with AI in the mix. The sources mentioned the 4 Ps. Right. But first, just touching on AI and marketing itself. It's a big tool there too. Helping with content ideas by analyzing trends, optimizing distribution, best platforms, best times, automating scheduling, personalizing messages. Any specific tools mentioned for that? Yeah, Sprout Social's AI Assist came up for helping draft social posts. MailChimp uses AI for personalization in email campaigns, tweaking subject lines, things like that. But there was a warning too, wasn't there? About just letting AI run loose. Definitely. The sources caution that, generic AI marketing strategies are ineffective. AI needs good data to work with, and it still needs human strategy and creativity guiding it. It augments. It doesn't replace your brain. Good point. And beyond the product and marketing, the sources emphasize having a business plan, even if you're just starting out solo. Yeah, they called it a well-crafted key to success. It's especially important if you ever look for funding down the road. It forces you to think through the essentials. Like what? What should be in it? The usual suspects, really. Executive summary, what your company does, industry analysis, who your customer is, competitors, your marketing and sales plan, how you'll operate day to day, who's on the team, and crucially, the financial projections. And they used an example, Randy's artificial intelligence, just to illustrate how that plan connects to concrete actions, like targeted content marketing or building a community. And that operational side covers the daily grind. Exactly. Managing projects, talking to clients, R&D, sales, finance, branding, all the stuff that makes a business actually run. Okay, now let's get to the core of making money from AI, the 4 Ps of AI monetization. There was that striking statistic, right? 94% of companies are adding AI features, but something like 42% aren't actually monetizing them effectively. That's a huge gap. So just having AI isn't enough. You need a plan to profit. Hence the 4 Ps. Exactly. Productize, protect, package, and price. I sort of covered Productize already. Making AI a distinct feature or product. Making sure it adds real value, not just being a thin GPT wrapper. Right. Differentiation is key. The second P is protect. This is super important, especially if your AI isn't just running in your own secure cloud. What do I mean, like on a customer's machine? Yeah, or on-premise or even on edge devices. The risks there, according to the sources, are things like model poisoning. Poisoning? Where someone tries to mess with your model's training data or performance, or model theft, competitors trying to copy your machine learning models. Yikes! How do you protect against that? The sources talk about software protection tools, strong licensing systems to control access, and rate limiting how often it can be used. They call this layer 0, protecting the core IP before you even think about selling it. Okay, layer 0, got it. Third P, package. This is all about how you bundle your AI features for different customers. You probably don't want to offer the exact same thing to a small business and a giant enterprise, right? Different needs, different budgets. Exactly. So you need flexible packaging. The key here, the sources say, is using software licensing and entitlement management. Entitlements? Yeah, that's basically defining exactly which features or usage levels a specific customer is allowed based on what they paid for. Good systems let you mix and match these entitlements easily for different packages like good, better, best tiers without rewriting your core code every time. Okay, that makes sense for flexibility. And the final P, price. This feels like the really tricky one with AI. It has unique challenges for sure. First, you have to factor in the costs of AI. It's not free. There's compute power, which can be significant. Energy costs. AI searches use way more power than standard ones. Optimizing models. Potentially paying licensing fees for third-party LLMs. Lots to consider. So, what pricing models work? The sources outlined a few. There's direct pricing, charging for the AI feature itself. Yep, like the Intercom Fin example. Their AI chatbot costs $7.99 per resolved query on top of their platform fee. The AI is a separate line item. Okay? Then indirect pricing. That's where the AI feature isn't directly charged for, but it makes your main product better or drives revenue elsewhere. Think Booking.com's AI Trip Planner. It's free, but it helps people plan, which leads them to book flights and hotels through Booking.com. So it drives the core business. What about usage-based? Charging based on consumption per AP, call, amount of data processed, compute units used. This works well because AI might automate tasks and reduce the number of seats or users you'd normally charge for. But the taximeter effect? Yeah, exactly. Customers can get nervous watching the cost tick up. So you need clear metering, maybe using prepaid tokens or credits to manage that anxiety. Makes sense. Hybrid pricing. Just combining fixed fees, like a base subscription with some variable usage charges. Gives you revenue stability and the customer some predictability plus flexibility. Okay, and the last one mentioned was value or outcome based. This is tying the price to the actual results the customer gets. Maybe cost savings achieved, revenue generated, efficiency gained, thanks to your AI. It perfectly aligns your value with theirs. Though maybe harder to measure sometimes. Can be, yeah. But very powerful if you can quantify the outcome. So, the sources kind of summarize the 4 Ps with a checklist. Yeah, pretty much. Productize means add real value, differentiate. Protect means encrypt models, use strong licensing. Package means structure your offering smartly with entitlements. And price means reflect the value delivered and offer flexibility. It's a really solid framework for thinking beyond just building the tech. Definitely. It moves you toward building a sustainable business around AI. Now, I've talked a lot about the potential, the how-to, but the sources were also clear about pitfalls and challenges, right? Oh yeah, very important to cover those. The biggest risk, repeated often, is building something before validating it. Pouring time and energy into an idea nobody actually wants. That's a recipe for burnout. For sure. What about the AI itself? Like when it messes up? Hallucinations? Yes, that came up explicitly. AI hallucinations. The model just making stuff up, inventing facts, sources, quotes, which can be a huge problem if you rely on it uncritically. Absolutely. The suggested fix from the sources. Add a specific instruction in your prompt, telling the AI it must validate its output. Ask it to provide specific sources or direct quotes from the material you gave it. Basically, make it show its work. Force it to be accountable. Good tip. Okay, wrapping up, the sources also talked about the mindset needed, especially for solo founders or small teams in this AI world. Yeah, it really comes down to a few things. focusing on solving real problems, not just playing with tech, leveraging communities online. You're not totally alone. There's support out there. And seeing AI strategically? Exactly. Not just as a productivity hack, but as a fundamental strategic advantage that changes what's possible for an individual or small team. There was almost this sense that you might not need a big team anymore. That was definitely hinted at in one source. The idea that maybe you just need the right problem, the right AI tools, and maybe some targeted help from freelancers for specific tasks. The message was kind of, don't underestimate what one person can achieve now. Okay, so this has been quite the deep dive. I've gone from using AI as a building co-pilot, the importance of validation, through the power of just shipping it and iterating constantly, exploring models like productized services, digging into marketing and the 4 Ps of monetization, and acknowledging the real challenges, the risks, and the mindset you need. The big takeaway for me is how much more accessible this power seems now. For you listening, to take an idea and make it real, potentially much faster and more efficiently than ever before. It really does feel like a shift in what's possible for individuals. Which leads to maybe a final thought to leave you with, based purely on what I've seen in these sources. If AI truly allows one person or a tiny team to do the work that used to require a whole early stage startup, significantly cutting costs, speeding up development, maybe even reaching profitability much faster, what does that actually mean for the traditional idea of a startup? Or the assumption that you always need a big venture capital funding rounds right at the start? Yeah, it's a provocative question. Are we maybe entering an era where these ambitious individuals, armed with a well-defined problem and powerful AI tools, become the new driving force of innovation? Something to think